Welcome to the Tournament Poker Edge podcast, brought to you by TournamentPokerEdge.com, the only podcast dedicated exclusively to poker tournament strategy. Now here's your host, Clayton Fletcher.
Hello once again, everybody, and welcome to the Tournament Poker Edge podcast. My name is Clayton Fletcher, and I am in fabulous Las Vegas. Happy to be bringing you yet another episode of the world's longest running poker strategy podcast. Yes, Vegas has been fabulous. In our last episode, we featured hands from day one of the $1,500 shootout. I want to tell you before we get started today that I did make day two of that event, and my 10-handed table included Josh Aurier, a top European pro named Maxim, and of course, world champion from 2016, main event winner Wynn. So it was a colorful table. There were some other players there that I Googled and I'd never heard of them before, but they had fairly impressive resumes. And there were a couple of guys that must have been so excited to make day two of a bracelet event as well. I ended up getting into a fairly big pot with Wynn himself. He opened, as he often does, from early middle position, and I called on the button with King-Queen suited. Everybody else got out of the way. The flop came Queen-10-7 with two diamonds, and I did not have any diamonds, and Queen bet small, and I went all in. We started day two with 50 big blinds, and then I was down to like 28, 30, something like that. So top pair was definitely good enough for me. If you can beat this, good for you. He actually thought about it for quite a while before finally calling with ace king. So I guess he thought he might have 10 outs, but he didn't. But you know, he's Wynn. He doesn't need 10 outs. 7 or whatever is totally fine for him. And he actually ends up spiking an ace on the river, and I went out 10th at my table, so I min-cashed in the shootout for $5,360. I am playing my very best poker. I have been in Vegas for a full 2 weeks now, and I know that every day I'm going in, I'm focused, I'm making strong decisions, I'm playing way better than I did last year, and I owe a lot of my progress as a pro to GTO Wizard. This is a program that has been extremely useful in my development, especially helping me find areas where I need to be more sticky and basically calling more often in spots that I was folding too much. But really overall, it's dramatically improved my game. You can use it to plug in a hand that you played and see if what you did is something that a solver would do. You can also upload all the hands that you've played and let the solver analyze them for you. You can even play versus a GTO Wizard opponent who uses AI to absolutely crush your soul. I promise you can't beat the Wiz. Anyway, you guys can try this out for 24 hours. I've got a great deal for you. All you have to do is click the link in the description, and for 24 hours you can test it out. And then when you're ready to buy, you'll save 10% because you used our affiliate link, which is in the description, gtowizard.com/p/TPE. So I've been here for 2 weeks. On last week's episode, we really talked a lot about the shootout and all the interesting spots I had on day one. I want to go over one of those hands again using the wizard just to analyze it. But first I want to backtrack because 2 weeks ago, we talked about a hand from day 7 of last year's main event. For me, that feels like a lifetime ago because I've played about 1 million hands of poker since then. And by the way, I'll be streaming a lot more this summer. If you guys have been catching my streams, I appreciate those of you who've been popping in to say hi and wish me luck. You can follow me on twitch.tv/ClaytonComic. So let's go back and look at that hand. You guys probably don't remember this one, but 2 weeks ago we talked about this hand. It's a multi-way situation, so we're not really going to be able to do post-flop on this one, but I still felt like it was worth plugging in, at least looking at the pre-flop decisions. Just to refresh your memory, there's a late position raise and then a call from Nicholas Oshtet, who's one of the best players of all time. The small blind folds, and then Elliot Casas in the big blind with ace-10 of hearts. He's got the effective stack in this hand, 34, big blinds. He's on day 7 of the main event. And I actually thought it would make sense, given the dynamics at the table, for him to go ahead and shove. Just stick the whole 34 in there, come what may. You've got suited ace 10, and that's probably what I would do. And anyone who watched me play deep in the main event on ESPN 6 years ago, you saw that I do that sort of thing quite a bit. Because in this particular tournament, your opponents are much more likely to make big laydowns than they are in your local card room's $100 daily. So yeah, I feel like that's an exploit. But yeah, even if you do end up getting called, you're probably doing okay versus the calling range. A coin flip versus pocket 8s, pocket 9s, and 30% versus kings, queens. You're just worried about aces, ace king, and ace queen. Ace jack probably folds. So yeah, for that reason, I wanted to shove and try to get this money. There's already 8.5 big blinds in the pot, so you might as well try to take it down, laying 4-1. But no, our actual big blind just called and saw the flop. I wanted to check with GTO Wizard and see if I'm crazy. Number one question, is there a shoving range in this spot pre-flop? And number two question, is ace 10 suited in that shoving range? So the answer to my first question is yes, the solver does have a rather robust shoving range, but ace 10 suited is not in it. King 10 suited is in it, along with obviously ace king off, ace queen off, ace jack off even. King 10 suited, queen 10 suited, jack 10 suited, and even king 9 suited shove quite often. As a matter of fact, they shove 100% of the time, along with 10s, 9s, and 8s. And usually we shove with ace 8 suited, ace 5 suited, ace 4 suited, pocket 7s, pocket jacks, but not all the time, and never, for some reason, with ace 10 suited. I don't know how the solver works, but it seems like the solver likes to have a king. For sure, there's a lot of hands with a king that like to shove, and we can see why, right? Anyway, the solver, when holding ace 10 suited here in the big blind, it's actually a 67% 3-bet to about 8 big blinds. 2 million out of an 8.5 million stack, and calling, just calling as our hero in this hand, Elliot Casas, did. That play is solver approved to the tune of 33% frequency. I want to look now at the hand we discussed last week where I had ace 10. This is from the $1,500 World Series of Poker Shootout Bracelet event. Day 1, this was early on. The blinds were 200, 300 with a 300 big blind ante, which I had paid. I am the big blind in this hand, and I have ace 10 offsuit. Our friend Dong Woo from South Korea makes it 700, and everybody folds to me in the big blind. I've got the ace of diamonds, 10 of hearts, and I speculated on last week's episode that the GTO strategy would be something of a mix. It's similar to the hand we just discussed, except there's no call in the middle, and also we're much, much deeper. Remember, in that hand, the effective stack is 34 big blinds. In this one, it's 60 big blinds, which was Dong Woo's stack. I had him barely covered. When the perfect solver strategy is telling you to do this, that percentage of the time, and this other thing, this other percentage of the time, I like to pick and choose based on my reads of my opponents. At this point in the tournament, it was already clear that my Korean friend was going to be very, very active, very loose, and very aggressive. So I felt like 3-betting very wide versus him was probably a good play. I made it 2,800, and Dong Woo called. Now let's see what the wizard has to say. The wizard loves 3-betting with ace 10 off here. It's a 70% 3-bet hand and only 30% call. So my play is solver approved. And now with 6,800 in the pot, it comes 9 of hearts, 4 of hearts, tray of spades. I c-bet big, 2/3 of the pot, and Dong Woo called. Let's see what the solver wants to do. In my shoes, the solver actually checks 58% of the time, only betting about 70% of the pot 4% of the time. So it's basically a very rare play. And mostly we're betting a quarter pot, like kind of the standard sizing. I had my justification for why I wanted to go big. I wanted to give him a difficult decision with a hand like Ace Jack or King Queen. I just don't think that in a 3-bet pot, a quarter pot size bet is going to get the job done very much, and even less often versus a player like Dongwoo. So anyway, my play is barely approved by GTO Wizard to the tune of 4%. And now with 15K in the middle, the turn came the 8 of diamonds, and we both checked. The solver, in my shoes, shoves 100%. That's how beastly, that's how savage the robot wants to be. If we bet 70% on the flop and the turn comes the 8 of diamonds, we shove because we have the 10 of hearts. I can only assume it has something to do with the 10 of hearts, because when we get to this spot, in this exact situation, which again, we're only going to be there 4% of the time on the flop in a perfect, strategic, optimized way. So it's not very common, but once we get here, when we have an ace 10 and we don't have a heart in our hand, we always check. So we shove when we have that 10 of hearts and we check without the heart. You figure it out. I can't tell you anything. So now we're getting to the river, and the solver never got to this river because we would have shoved already, but it came the 10 of diamonds, and I bet 7K, opponent called, and my hand was good. So that was an interesting hand history review with the help of GTO Wizard. You guys click that link and give this program a try. I'm sure you will love it as much as I do. Now let's talk about what I've been doing this week. I played the $1,600 $2.5 million guaranteed tournament at the Wynn. They had 6 starting flights, the largest of which was day 1E, which is the flight that I played. I'm going to go through some of these hands from day 1E, rapid fire style, similar to what we did last week with the shootout. So in the first few levels, there were no really big pots, but I was kind of just slowly building my stack. Like I'd raise it up with ace queen, flop a queen, and they'd call me one time on the flop and then fold on the turn when I bet again. I'd check raise with a flush draw on the flop and they would fold. There were just a lot of these kind of like small ball, like little acts of aggression that would take down small to medium sized pot. And before you even knew what was going on, my 40,000 was 80,000. The blinds were 1K, 2K with a 2K big blind ante. And this player who only recently joined my table, a very European looking guy with a scarf on, he makes it 4K. He's got about 60,000 in his stack. And the action folds to me on the button. And I've got the king of spades, queen of spades. I have him well covered with my 80,000. I make the call, the blinds fold, and we are going to be heads up in position. Hero with the king of spades, queen of spades. And the flop comes ace of hearts, king of diamonds, queen of diamonds. Ace, king, queen. Hero with king, queen. So I've got bottom 2 pair, and my opponent checks to me. I decided to bet a little on the big side. I put in 6,500, and my opponent called. The turn was the 5 of spades. And I was just feeling something fishy was going on here. Is he slow playing a set of aces? Did he flop the nuts with Jack 10? My spidey senses were tingling, and I did not think that King Queen was necessarily good right now. Even on this blank 5 of spades turn, I mean, I don't know. Maybe he's got ace 5. Maybe it's not that blank. But when he checked to me, I just felt strength. So I checked behind, basing that mostly on my sense of him and just my read of the situation and the fact that he called a fairly large flop bet. The river came the 9 of clubs at my opponent's shove, and this shove is for like 3 times the pot at this point. I don't know. He's like a European guy with a scarf on. He's in his 30s. Maybe king queen is good a lot. I threw it away. You know, I can't call this. I don't know. I didn't want to put in that many chips with 2 pair. After that, some more things went bad. And the next thing I know, I've only got about 58,000. So the blinds are still 1K and 2K. And there's a player on my right. He's from France. He likes to sit with his legs crossed. And in doing so, he keeps kicking me when he's like sort of swinging his crossed leg. Which, I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm spoiled because I've been playing a lot of 6-max, shootouts, 8-handed PLO events. And 9-handed shouldn't feel this crowded. But this guy was literally kicking me, and I'd asked him twice to stop. So he was annoying and kind of rude and definitely French. With the new system at the Wynn, you can actually see the names of your opponents. So I know this guy was definitely from France based on his name. Anyway, the action folds to him in the small blind. He's only got 16 big blinds in his stack, so he's got 32,000, and I've got about double that. And he opens from the small blind, making it 6,000. And I look down at the 10 of clubs, 9 of clubs. Now, in years past, I would either fold or call with this hand, but I now know, thanks to the work I've been doing with GTO Wizard, that we're actually supposed to be fairly aggressive with suited 10-9, suited 10-8 on these short stack 15, 20 big blind situations. So I shoved, which is what you're supposed to do, I'm pretty sure, based on the study I've been doing, and the Frenchman folded. And at least after that, he stopped kicking me because he turned and started crossing his leg the other way. Anyway, the blinds go up 1,500 and 3K, and now I've got 65K, 22 big blinds, so I'm not doing great. But I'm also not doing that bad. I mean, I think my stack was pretty close to average, maybe just a little below. This was a pretty fast tournament. Day one is really fast. You get a lot more play on day two. Anyway, I'm in third position, so 2 folds to me, and I open with pocket 10s. I've just made it 6,500, and the action folds to our scarf-wearing European friend, and now he 3-bets to 15,000. Remember, guys, I only have 65,000. Now the small blind, who only has 42,000, moves all in, and the action is on me. I decided to throw the 10s away, and Scarfy guy called with aces, so I would have been in terrible shape there, and I think I dodged a bullet. So moving on, we got moved to another table. At this point, I only have 42,000 in my stack, so it hasn't been going well. I had 80,000 at one point. It's been dwindling ever since, and now I'm at a new table. I've only played a few hands at this table, but the action folds to the cutoff, and he's an older guy, maybe around 60, 65. He's got kind of a weathered look to him, and I don't think he's a professional player at all. He makes it 7,000, and the button, who is an Asian youngster in his 20s playing online on his phone as well, he folds. And now at that point, I'm in the small blind with King Jack offsuit and 14 big blinds. Guys, I just shove. I'm not looking to see a flop. I've got 14 bigs. I need to try to get some chips going here. There's already 14,500 in the middle, which is about a third of my stack. So I just stuck it all in and I took it down. The big blind folded and the original razor folded, so the pot is mine. Just a few hands later, the action folds to that same Asian player that I mentioned before. He's a young guy. He's playing online poker on his phone, and he's also been fairly active at our table. So he opens to 6,000. He's got over 100,000 in his stack. I'm at 55,000, so 18 big blinds, and I'm next to act in the hijack with pocket 7s. I shoved again. I'm all in. I've got 18 bigs. I've got a pair, whatever. I mean, I've got to try to get back in this tournament. So I 3-bet shove and take it down again. So this is another way to kind of build your stack up. If you don't see a flop, you can't lose the tournament. You know, if nobody calls your pre-flop action, then you can just keep collecting chips that way. It works every time but the last time. So next hand, well, not the very next hand, but after the blinds went up, they were 2K and 4K. And after all this shoving and taking it down and building things up, I've now got 98,000 in my stack. There are 304 players remaining in my flight, and 118 will be in the money and move on to play day 2. The average stack is 125, so I'm in the mix there. You know, I'm about 75-80% of the average, and that's okay with me. So the blinds were 2K, 4K, and a very active player, a good player though, a different Asian guy, older, maybe like 35 or 40. He's got glasses, kind of thoughtful, but yeah, he gets in there. He makes it 8K from middle position. He's got 150 in his stack, and the action folds all the way around to me in the small blind with the jack of spades, jack of clubs. So I've got pocket jacks, I've got 25 big blinds, and I've got an active, aggressive opponent. We should talk about the big blind just in case he decides to do something. He is probably the chip leader in the whole tournament. He's a 40-something Indian guy with a very thick Indian accent, very nice guy, kind of joking around a lot. As you would imagine, when you're chip leading a big tournament, you're usually in your best possible mood. So I want to catch this guy on a bad day when he can't hit a single flop and see if he's this jovial. But he was, for what it's worth, as nice as he can be. And my guess is that he's probably the tournament chip leader at this point in the action. So both of these guys have me covered. I'm trying to get all in with my pocket jacks. You got 25 big blinds, a pair of jacks. Let's see if we can get all in. But it's too big of a shove. I don't really want to put in all 25 big blinds. I went instead for a smaller 3-bet. I basically committed myself, though. I put in 28,000 of my 98,000 in chips. The big blind, the chip leader, actually makes the call here, which kind of set off a some warning signs in my head. I don't really know about that. What's he calling with after it's been raised and re-raised? I was like, this could be a big pair or something. And maybe the Asian guy picked up on that right away as well, which isn't to say the Indian guy isn't Asian, but you guys know what I mean. Anyway, he makes the call, and then the other player folds. So now I'm going to be heads up from out of position, small blind versus big blind, in a hand where I'm the pre-flop aggressor, 3-better. So the flop is a miracle. There's 75,000 in the middle. We've got about that in our stack. The flop comes jack of diamonds, 6 of hearts, 5 of clubs, jack 6, 5 rainbow, and this is the nuts. So I'm very happy to try to get a little bit more money in there. We've got about a pot-sized bet left, but I didn't want to shove. I don't want to scare him off. I don't want to check raise, same thing. I just put in 16,000. I figure it shouldn't be too hard if this guy has an overpair to get the rest, whether he shoves now or I can get him to put it in on the turn. Remember, I thought he had a big hand. So we bet 16 into 75. Villain makes the call. The turn, 6 of diamonds, pairs the board, and now I go all in, and Villain calls again. He turns over pocket aces. It's no good, and the river king means we double up, and now there's 200,000 plus in my stack when the average is only 125K. So up until that point in the tournament, when there was only about a third of the starting field remaining, only at that point did I ever have an above average stack, unless you count when I had 80,000 many hours ago. So a couple more hands here. The blinds went up to 3,000, 5,000 with a 5,000 big blind ante, and I was under the gun. I made it 10K off of my 200K stack, and I've got the ace of spades, 6 of spades. Now, those of you who listen to the podcast regularly or follow me on Twitch when I'm live streaming, you know that I typically play very, very tight in early position. But in this particular table, I was feeling confident that I had a strong read on all of my opponents. Most of them were not scary to me. Also, I felt like people were starting to think about possibly making day 2, so they were tightening up, and that means I'm going to loosen up my range a little bit. I know that any suited ace off a 40 big blind stack is going to be solver approved, but for me personally, I typically don't play some of these weaker under the gun hands, but I did in this situation, and the action folded all the way around to the amateur older guy, 60s, who made the lay down earlier. Now, this time he makes the call. He's in the small blind, and the big blind folds, and I have ace 6 of spades. The flop is ace of hearts, 8 of hearts, 6 of clubs. So I have top and bottom pair. Villain checks. I bet 13K, and he makes the call, leaving himself only 60,000 more behind. The turn is the 5 of diamonds. So our board is now ace of hearts, 8 of hearts, 6 of clubs, 5 of diamonds, and Villain checks again. I shove. He tanks for like 3 minutes, and then he finally calls, and he shows ace 7. So I am ahead, but he's got top pair with an open-ended straight draw, and the river was the 8 of clubs, which counterfeited me. So Villain ends up winning this pot with aces and eights with a 7 kicker, which was just a real groaner. So all the chips that I had won with that miracle flop with the jacks almost immediately gone. And then I started wishing that I would have stuck to my normal under the gun raising range. But, what can you do? I got it in really good. I'm just surprised that he would call from the small blind with ace-7 offsuit. I mean, I raised under the gun. I think that any solver would have you throwing that hand away. But being able to identify these mistakes can help us determine who knows what they're doing. And this guy did not. A short while later, I was dealt pocket aces, and we managed to get all in 3 ways, and I won. I had the other players well covered, but it basically got my stack right back where it was, right around that 200,000 mark, when the average was about 150,000 and 250 players remaining in the tournament. And then things were kind of quiet for a while. We weren't dealt any good starting hands, didn't see any good spots. The blinds went up to 5K, 10K, and at that point I had 264,000 with 150 players remaining, and the average stack was 253,000. Let's see, I was in middle position with the Queen of Spades, Queen of Hearts, a hand that I was dealt 3 times, that exact combo, spades and hearts, 3 times on the same day, which is very hard to do. I opened to 22K, so just a little bit above a min raise there. And the action folds to a new player at my table. I've got to describe this guy for you. He's European. I think he may have been French as well, but he could have been Belgian. He was very stylish, though. He had fancy schmancy sunglasses. I don't know if they were Gucci or Hugo Boss, but he had these cool designer sunglasses. He had this bright yellow, blonde, swoopy, wavy hair. He was in his mid to late 20s. And I think he was wearing a Versace jacket. So this is a high fashion, young party animal type of poker player. He kind of reminded me of Elke back in the day. That's why I thought he might be French as well. Anyway, this player decides to 3-bet to 70,000, and he's got me covered. He's got about 350,000 in his stack. Remember, there's only 150 players remaining in the field, and 118 of us would make it to day 2. So this could be the decision that gets me to day 2 of this tournament, or causes me to bust out and have another notch on my losing streak, my downswing, or whatever. Look, I started thinking back to last year's $3,000 mid-stakes poker championship, an event that they are not having again this year, but I was in a similar situation, very close to the money bubble versus Scott Ball, and I opened with ace king, and he 3-bet, and I just called. I wanted to see a flop, and I didn't want to get too many chips in on the bubble, and I was, a little bit scared. I've been kicking myself and regretting that hand ever since. I ended up flopping nothing and checking and folding on the flop. Anyway, back to 2025, I have a different mindset this year. I don't care if I bubble tournaments. I'm not here to get a min cash or break a losing streak. Those things don't matter. I'm all in, and if he's got aces or kings, or if he wants to take a big coin flip with ace king, so be it. Remember, I've got an average size stack here, but it's still only 25 big blinds. Like I say, this is a fast structure. Let's stick it in with the queens and hope for the best. He thinks about it for a little while and then folds. And that's a beautiful outcome for me because I increased my stack by almost 100,000. And then later on, with 134 players remaining in the flight, the average stack was 284K and I had 446K. Couple of things went well, like I busted a short stack with that exact same Queen of Spades, Queen of Hearts, and he had ace queen, and he didn't outflop me. We take another break and we come back to the shot clock, and you've got these time bank cards that you can throw in and get an extra 30 seconds or whatever. And this is how they handle not letting people stall and stall and stall. You've got a time bank and you've got to use it. I love all of that. I wish every single poker tournament used a time bank from the beginning, but I understand that would not be practical in this day and age. But someday, my friends, just like online, you can't wait forever. Make up your damn mind. The same young French stylish guy that we mentioned before has been trying to abuse the bubble. He knows that a lot of people are looking at the clock. They want to see, is it down to 133? Is it down to 132? How close are we to that 118 magic number where we will make day two and be in the money? He raises once again to open the pot. The blinds were 6K and 12K. He puts in 24K and they fold to me in the cutoff, and I've got the 7 of diamonds, 6 of diamonds, and I decided to take a stand. I've got 446,000 in my stack. I put in 75,000 of it. The action folds back to the Frenchman and he folds again. I end up bagging 460K for the day. And on Thursday, the day before this podcast comes out, I will be playing day 2. Day 3, which is the final table, is this Friday, the day this podcast comes out, and I hope to be there. And that'll do it for this episode. Guys, I'm very excited to be doing well early on in my summer adventure here in Vegas. If you guys want to get day-to-day updates, you can either follow me on Twitter, or you can also check out my Substack. There's a link in the description. It's free, and I just send out kind of like a newsletter format, kind of sharing what's going on and how things are going here in fabulous Las Vegas. And for everyone here at Tournament Poker Edge, I'm Clayton Fletcher. Thank you so much for listening.
I wanna hold them like they do in Texas Plays. Fold them, let them hit me, raise it, baby, stay with me. Luck and intuition, play the cards with babes to start. And after she's been hooked, I'll play the one that's on her heart.